Hey everyone, it's Imani and River from the Haven Earth Tradeschool, which is located at the Haven Village in East Tennessee. And we're really excited to have one of our dear friends, amazing homesteader, Nicole Sauce, who has an amazing podcast, Living Free in Tennessee, but also has organized a Self-Reliance Festival, which we've gone to and spoke at a few times. And that's how we met Nicole, and obviously through Exit and Build with John and Rebecca Bush. But hopefully we'll have a few people hopping on. I know this is a holiday weekend, but there's so many people that are looking to return to the land, and we've been talking about it, but this last 9 months, River and I are actually doing it, and we've relied on so many people like you, Nicole, who have done it for longer than us, that have already learned so much. And so we thought it would be really insightful to share a few things, like what we've learned and the things that you've learned along the way, to help people who are dreaming about becoming more self-resilient and dreaming about, having that freedom and that sovereignty, especially related to food and being prepared for the future years. So glad to have you here, and you're representing the other side of Tennessee, but we're excited also to have you come out.
The other side.
The dark side.
The other side. It's a long state, but we love coming out there to visit. But we're really excited to have you come out and check out what we've been up to here at Haven Village. And I know a lot of people here in East Tennessee will be excited to have you out. So we're going to do that for our Homestead Bootcamp that's coming up. But we'll talk more about that. I'd love for you to just add anything to introduce yourself before we kind of dive in to conversation.
I don't know if there's much more to say. I fell into this life because I loved going swimming in this giant lake behind me. I'm not on the lake, but I'm close to the lake, and ended up with land. And then the minute you get land, you get chickens. And then the minute you get chickens, you become a homesteader, right? Like it's part of the progression. But I think that this lifestyle is more of a mindset than necessarily finding the land. And a lot of people get trapped behind the, I can't find land. I can't find land. Well, I know you have a membership program there. There are lots of ways to interact with other homesteaders, and you can start homesteading in an apartment, in my opinion. So, sure, it's great to have land, and that because you've been there for a year now, but it's also this time of year, we're all a little tired, if we're honest about what's going on right now, right? Like the scale of weeds that hit you at this time of year, you're like, wow, I didn't know that could grow a foot in a day.
Yeah.
Why won't my tomato do that?
Yeah, it's because of all the rain that's happening. It was really funny because I posted the live, and then I saw on your post, like, if anybody's in from their gardens because of the storm, and then as soon as we get on, it starts raining back here. But I think the rain in Tennessee definitely makes things grow. And you're right. I love that you talk about that, because there are so many people that even when we didn't have land, when we were in Texas, we were renting. We started gardening and doing stuff because we needed to start doing something. You just need to start doing something, even if you don't have what you consider to be the ideal circumstances. There are so many things that you can learn. So in your number one of top 5, what, having land or not, just homesteading, what do you think is one of the most important things that you need to know?
I'm going to answer this with a question to you, and then we'll riff on it. How much easier do you think it was for you to start your garden where you are now, having learned gardening before you moved there?
Absolutely essential. I mean, because you're just anytime you're repeating something, like, because we're implementing a couple different methods, Mittlighter. So that was a system we had to learn with the beds and the irrigation and the seeds. So yeah, so much easier. But we're also doing hugelkultur. It's learning something ahead of time saves you a lot of time and money.
Exactly. And so I think my number one lesson was everything I had done up until starting actual quote unquote homesteading out here made it easier to be fearless about taking on things on the homestead, because I'd already been through something similar where, I had been gardening in Oregon before I moved here for many years, and fermenting my own pear cider from this giant pear tree. I'd turned it into a whole neighborhood event. So there was a community organizing element there too, and food preservation. I didn't know as much about it then as I do now after being on the homestead for 17 years. But I think that you'd be surprised how much you already know, whether or not what you've done is garden. It could be that you've learned how to fix a faucet, and just knowing how to fix your own faucet on the homestead when a plumber is 2 hours away is a big benefit, right? And then the skills you have there for troubleshooting other things that come up with your waters, with anything else that if you're going off grid, just setting up those rain barrels and drip irrigation and all the things you start getting into. It's surprising how much you already know. And I think that's something that you should be proud of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I love that. Just hi, Nicole. I just realized I didn't say anything before then. Hi. I know. I like what you're saying. Just about just getting some information through that life experience, and kind of, it gets to a certain point that you just have to say go, because it doesn't matter, in a way, just the idea of fixing a faucet, right? It's such a small thing in the overall picture to have an understanding of, but it's amazing what can give you the courage to actually start something bigger. And I think it's like, people are like, oh, it's such a mountain I have to like learn before I can start doing this. But it's actually not. It's actually, if you get under the path learning, and you're
the rain is really coming down now.
and creative, at the end of the day, you become a problem solver. And I think that's what we become, and what we are essentially, right? It's problem solvers. But in the mainstream world of reality, kind of in some ways don't get to really explore that or really develop that, because
not like 15 times
things are
a day.
set up in such a way that we don't need to, and so many conveniences, but essentially that's what it is, right? I mean, it's just doing it and getting the confidence by actually trying out some smaller steps, going to Self-Reliance Festival and learning some things there, or coming here for a thing. I think it helps to give people that courage, because, as I say, every bird knows how to build a nest. And I think it's the same with us. It's in our nature to be able to take care of ourselves. But we somehow got all these layers of blocks that stop us from actually realizing that. So that's, see that, and it sounds like that's how you started, and I think it's how
those
a lot
are
of
the
people
swallows
do.
above us. We have the rain and the swallows in our.
It's nature.
Yeah, there's definitely a nature.
Every outside video I have sounds like cicadas a lot.
Yeah, right now the cicadas are strong. Yeah, so I think that's a great number one. What would be another one that you would add to it?
The second one is more about prioritizing. And as homesteaders, you become fearless about trying new things. It's just the mindset changes, and you're like, could I raise cows? Sure, I can raise cows. I don't know anything about cows, but I'm going to get a cow tomorrow and I'm just going to go for it. And I've got this barn or whatever. And you get into the habit of being fearless, and then you're fearless a little too much. And you have 15 things you were fearless about, all of which require some of your attention. I have not met a single homesteader who didn't do this, where you're like, I'm just going to start slow and add one thing a year, and you keep it methodical. And then you add 10 things in 1 year, or maybe 5, whatever it is. Yeah. And so the lesson we learn from that is to indeed listen to the brain side, the logic side of ourselves that's telling you, sauce, don't do it, sauce, don't do it, sauce, but sauce is going to do it anyway. I hope one person in the world hears me say this and actually manages to only add 1 or 2 things at a time when they're building out their homestead, because you get to your homestead and you're like, I want a garden, I want chickens, I want ducks, I want rabbits, I want small ruminants, I want to put in a food forest, I want to build a water collection system, I need a solar system. Like, all of these things take time and resource.
Yeah.
And if you can like put the brakes on a little bit and get to know your land better by being there for your first year, you'll have a way better idea of where you want all those things, first of all, and you can get feedback from your land. Because even if you're the best planner in the whole world, there's going to be that one place on your property where stuff just doesn't like to grow. Or there's going to be that one place on your property where elderberries do like to grow. And the best thing you can do if you want elderberries in your life is find that place on your property and don't fight the elderberries. Just let that be your elderberry patch. That's where my elderberry patch is, like literally planted itself. And it's one of the most robust places I've had elderberries on the property because they want to be there. So, so it's really about finding your priority and then doing your best to stick to it, even though your creative and emotional and spiritual inclination is going to be like, I love this. I want to do all the things, right?
Yeah, so true. I mean, we've given that advice too, Nicole. And
yeah, I see that. I see how much you did in 1 year.
Yeah. Well, we've given people that advice, and we have done a lot in 1 year, but we are, like you said, a little different in that we have some membership because we did pace it. And I think just the priorities and with that, the planning, because I was going to ask you this, and it kind of piggybacks on this, because for me, it's all about systems and putting systems in place. And you really have to have that organization and systems. But I find you're always trying to streamline and make the systems more efficient, right? Like, oh, that clearly doesn't work. So let's tweak this. Let's do that. Let's do this. So it's just constantly problem solving, but trying to become more efficient. And I'm definitely I'm known for saying around here is it's temporary. Just put it there. It's just temporary. Like, this is temporary. It will be moving. Like, it's just leave it right there. So it's like, because you got to try something and you don't know if it's going to work, and then you just try something else. So it is a lot, especially if you're doing it solo and you don't have a ton of help. I can imagine that it would be overwhelming. And we've done a lot of land visits and seen people in that overwhelmed state. Just mowing and weeding, like you just talked about, is overwhelming. Like it is like a full-time job. And where we are in Tennessee, maybe different areas, but yeah, it definitely requires having those priorities in place for sure. Like what are your top things that you want to do, and try not to do that, go overboard with that.
And we've seen a lot of it. We did different land visits to people who were getting off the grid and setting themselves up, even just understanding where to put structures. They couldn't pull the trigger on the structure. They bought a big greenhouse or something, and because they didn't really have a plan, or didn't really know how to plan, and a PDC course isn't really going to teach you how to plan it all out. Maybe you make a pretty garden, but it's it requires a lot of energy input. It requires a lot of energy, but we couldn't do what we're doing here alone.
And we had a lot of existing infrastructure, which helped get things going.
And we're also, I come from a project management background in construction, and architecture. So it's, definitely we don't want to make people feel bad about, us getting some stuff done, but because we know how to do it in a bigger sense of maybe development. But on the homesteading level, people just seem to put themselves in a really compromising situation where they were just reliant on some outside help to try and just make a life, and they felt trapped. They kind of get trapped by what they've created and by the monster they created, and
the opposite of what they were trying to do, right?
Right.
Yeah, totally.
I think it's probably one of the best pieces of advice, really.
Well, and you guys had something else that I think is pretty cool. You had a network, a community of people who knew what you didn't know. So, I know you've put in the vermicomposting system for an outhouse, I assume is what it is, or a bathhouse. Yeah. You've got a solar system in, and you didn't just go in and say, I'm going to learn everything about solar by myself and figure this out. I'm going to hire the guy that can figure that out for me and just get it knocked off the to-do list.
At the South Alliance Festival.
Yeah. So
Yeah, we're both project managers, but we're also both like networkers. We definitely have a network, and like if we don't know something, we ask and we bring people in, and I think that is, I think there is that solo homesteading, and it might be also just for resources, but I love building that network and that community. Sean has been here, and he'll be here for the Homestead Bootcamp, showing off the off-grid systems that we did, and we had our 3-week hemp builder training. I don't know if you know, Nicole, we lost power for 2 days in that storm, and got to test our off-grid systems with 20 people here, and we passed.
Yeah.
but it was, but it was like, that was a whole other challenge, right? As like, okay, you're putting these systems in place, and then you have to test the systems on how they actually work. So, but yeah, we definitely like to leverage. We have an awesome neighbor who does a lot with maintenance, who we've brought on as like a monthly stipend, because he's always willing to help. It's like,
he keeps following. He's like, comes over and he's like, I saw you did this today. I was watching it on social media.
yeah. So
That's awesome.
We're like, actually, that was 3 days ago, but we posted it today. But
yeah, you'll get to meet him. So okay, number 3, what would you say?
Number 3, homestead. Now you're making me think hard. I know, like I could have prepared and done notes, but instead I was weeding in my garden.
Weeding could be number 3.
Well, again, I'm going to go to, when you design your homestead, be very honest with yourself about how often you want to be there versus not wanting to be there. It is in fact possible to homestead and not have to be on your homestead all the time. It is not possible for me not to have somebody on my homestead all the time, though. It is not designed that way. And so because of the community around me, I can leave.
Yeah.
But if it was just me still, because I started out with just me and one other person, if it was still that scenario, then the fact that I have the kind of livestock set up the way that they are set up, I would have trouble leaving for more than 1 day.
Mm-hmm.
And either way is fine, but just know you are literally marrying your homestead if you set it up so you can't leave. And the fastest way to set your homestead up so you can't leave is to put in livestock without enough automation. You can automate some livestock. You just basically need to check on them once a day. So you're gonna tailor your livestock based on what your needs are, what your schedule is. And if you can find somebody to come be there when you are not there. So
true. We've talked to many people who are tied to their homestead and didn't think about that person, didn't really want to be. And like, almost a year later, it's challenging.
Yes, like tears.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because you're like, I want to go to this graduation of my niece and I can't, right? Or whatever it is.
Exactly. It's like, it's a real thing for sure. That's a really good thing to think about.
Yeah. And I was just going to say about that, essentially it's part of a design process, right? At the end of the day, it's like doing your diligence on many stratas of, designing a garden, designing what, looking into what these animals are actually going to require. And okay, how is that actually going to fit into a schedule? What's that going to look like if I start implementing all of these things? Because I think there is just an idealistic, sentimental type of thing about coming back to homesteading in a lot of ways. Because we feel we lost something, we want to reconnect with nature and healthy food and all of them good things, freedom.
But I mean, wouldn't you say, Nicole, like people who were doing in the past had big families, they had more people. Nobody kind of is doing it. The solo, it's not really the model.
Well, and if you think about like traditional homesteading, my great grandparents walked across or traveled across the country to be on a homestead in Idaho when they left Missouri for that. And they didn't stay there for their whole lives, but they were responsible from that point on with their children for finding food by hunting and fishing and gathering, by growing food and preserving the food, and going, like, a lot of it revolved around food because you have to fulfill food, energy, water, right? And then there are other needs we have, but without those, we don't have anything. And even in the the history of homesteading, homesteaders ended up homesteading near other homesteaders.
Yeah.
Right.
And what happened when somebody got really sick, or somebody needed help with a birth, or there was a barn to raise, so to speak. It's yes, you were doing it by yourself, but even then, if you had access to neighbors were helping each other. And I imagine that they didn't always get along 100%.
Mm.
I mean, we know of some feuds, but people work together despite not being 100%. Every opinion is lockstep this direction.
Yeah. That makes
Mm.
a lot of sense.
So we feel like we're going it alone, but we are better off if we don't.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally.
Well, maybe that could be a number 4, would be really this networking and having those others, and we found that too. I mean, it's been amazing coming here and connecting with the local community. That's, I would say, one of our greatest resources is actually not our membership, but the local community. And that's due in part because we're building structures, right? Because we teach people how to build the healthy hemp homes. And we're starting those residential builds this summer. So we've built like 7 yurts, and we found built with our local team, which is great because we're helping grow this local economy. So as a trade school, people are really appreciative of it because it's creating that income, but also like the relationships. Like one of our lead guy came by with his wife and girls today that had to show him all the work he's been doing. Like that makes us feel like awesome that they're really excited about what they're doing. Those relationships for us are way more than just people we're hiring. It's just been profound. I mean, and I think, I don't know, Tennessee, it's a neighborly thing, but it's like, and it's not to say we're all on the same page, but it's like there's this mutual understanding of how everybody really looks out for people, at least where we are in this part of Polk County in Tennessee. It's just been, so we're so grateful for it.
Mm. Yeah, I was gonna add, and I don't know if this fits in to maybe even your next response, but just around, like, we're doing the teaching about healthy hemp homes. That's kind of our like thing. Obviously there's other elements to all of it because of what we're developing here. But
we have got lots of animals.
But then then you have your other side hustle businesses, that you do, that are connected to supporting your life and how you want to live your life. I would imagine that is actually probably a good advice to anybody, is like, what can I do when I go back to the land other than be a homesteader, like
to generate income?
Yeah, because one thing I learned traveling, I did a lot of traveling and had the fortune to see a lot of different cultures, but also to see how people were doing like intentional community in other countries, and especially in Russia, they had over like 600 communities had started in the 90s. The Anastasia kind of book series and all of that like was real, and the back to the land movement there, and just was like there wasn't a lot of success, because people hadn't really thought about it in terms of like, how are we going to make money, like how are we going to bring energy in here. They've just gone on the idealistic thing, like, oh, our forefathers, they all lived off the land and da 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 da. But it's like, it's a different time in history. For one thing, there's a lot more draws away from doing it than there used to be. It was kind of like you didn't really have a choice back in the day, right? Now you have choice. It's almost like a lifestyle choice for some people to be a homesteader. I'm just trying to make sure I get my point across. But
do you need to have?
Yeah, do you recommend having something that?
That was literally point number 5 for me. I actually have a 6th point, but point number 5 is money.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So my great grandparents were not homesteaders for their whole lives, because my grandfather moved to Oregon to cut down trees because he needed to have a job to earn money to support the family. And did they live on a farm during that time too and continue the practices of being homesteaders? Yes. But the reality of our economy is that the doctor wants to take money for services, as do many people. And so there is a school of thought among some in the homesteading world about money being this sort of like evil thing, or not wanting to take advantage of people, so they'll price things that they have for sale for less than they have in it in like inputs, just starting there, right?
Right.
And changing the mindset to I deserve to be rewarded for the work I put in
Yeah.
is very, very hard for people. But I think it's necessary to assess your homestead that way. Like my duck eggs are $10 a dozen. There's there's thought behind that, right? And I'm totally okay not selling any duck eggs at all, but if they're going to be for sale, they're going to be $10 a dozen, or we're going to fold them back into our lifestyle here. And having a way to make money when you get out on the land, so to speak, is great. Like I know you two will be successful because you have that whole hemp homes project. You've got the architectural background. You've got the capacity to teach so many people how to make a healthier, better life. And that's what I love about your project. And that means that you're going to attract the kind of people to your project that support them and support you. Like you've figured out how to make it mutually beneficial. So I think as homesteaders, we need to think about that. It is mutually beneficial if I'm, just black and white selling a product like eggs or coffee or whatever. But also we learn things, and having the capacity to teach what we're doing to other people, it's okay to be rewarded for that. And you are then equipping them to do the same thing. Like we have an annual chicken processing class here. It is in 2 weeks. It's on the 8th. And it is, it's something that we have a lot of fun with. And we show people how to process a chicken. And a lot of people come to my class not even sure they can do the first step, which is, so I'm pretty good at walking people through the emotional part of that, because I had to go through the emotional part of that. It wasn't easy for me the first time either. And it's not actually become any easier for me. It is just something that I have accepted. If I want a connection with my food, I have to do that part. And I think because of that, that's become one of our, like, the specialties. We're not just going to go in there and be cold-hearted and whatever. But at the same time, every year the class changes a little bit because I learn from other people's process. I go to other people's processing classes. Yeah, because they show me things I hadn't thought of doing it that way, and so I think that, like, sort of the ecosystem of your homestead boot camp, which I'm super excited to be part of, is and all of us being willing to do that on our homesteads is important, and let people see your homestead as it is.
Right.
We all have piles of junk places.
Right.
Boneyard.
As you said, temporary leave it there piles.
Yeah.
It's temporary.
One pile to another pile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a camper air conditioning in front of my house right now because I'm redoing the roof on my camper. But
yeah, we have this shed that was here when we got here, and it's kind of like a junk shed, and it's the first thing you see when you come on the property. It's like we really want to move that. Like maybe this will be the week we take it down. Like maybe by the Homestead Boot Camp we'll take it down.
Maybe at the Homestead Boot Camp that could be like a side project. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, Nicole. Everybody thinks we make them work, so I don't know if I can do that one. But I'm going to put up for anybody who is, well, I can't do it in the background, but let's see. June 14th to the 16th is going to be our Homestead Boot Camp. I'll show that at the end, and I'll put the link up in the comments. But I think what you said was so important as far as people thinking about that, what they're going to do. That's part of the planning piece too. And for us, we did think a lot of that through. We have been since River and I met just a couple of years ago from the beginning, and because we know that's such a challenging point for people. But I totally agree with you that other people in this movement, there's a lot of scarcity, right, and lack of abundance, and feeling like, taking advantage of people or whatever. Like we would want to pay people a fair price for things.
Yeah.
For their eggs and for their pigs, and like that's how we create our own economy. And yeah, if you can trade and stuff, and there's that shared value, I mean, it's ultimately the best thing that we can be doing is supporting our other local people and
Oh.
and not just giving everything away for free when you're putting actual funds and time. Like when you have animals, you feed them. I mean, this is no joke. Like feeding them on time to get that. I know why those duck eggs are $10. I was like, give you 12, Nicole. Actually, if you
I
have
mean, in a cicada year, the feed bill's a little lower right now, but Tactical couldn't figure out why they didn't want to go to bed last week. I'm like, they're hanging out in a circle under trees.
yeah.
And cicadas are falling, and they're like, they don't want to go to bed.
The feed cost is going down.
And for folks seeing this on my YouTube channel, which you may not realize, I decided just to stream it to mine too, so you get more views. That is at havenearthtradeschool.net is where you can go to sign up for the Homestead Bootcamp, and it's June 14 through 16.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
So
on that page, if you go into that website, you'll see just click on it for the schedule and the more details. But yeah. Thanks, Nicole, for that.
Sure.
That plug. We're super excited. I forgot to stream it to our YouTube, so I'm glad you streamed it to yours, but we'll put it up on ours. And yeah, we're just really excited to have you out here. I don't know if I'll have as much growing in the garden to preserve. I know you challenged me when I was there at Self-Reliance Festival. What I like that storm where we came through, right? That after the tornado winds left, I went and planted beans. So I'm hoping some beans are here before you come.
Yeah, maybe. So really at this time of year, I don't really start canning things in earnest until mid-July usually.
Yeah. So
it takes that long.
Yeah.
But yeah, you might. Did you do cabbages this year?
No, but we have a nearby farmer who did, so I can definitely.
We could do some sauerkraut.
Yep, I've got my crock pot, and I think even just you coming through our homestead as like new set of eyes and just seeing what we have and giving us, just like what you said, going to that processing class, like, hey, you guys could do it this way, or you could do that way, and that would save you so much time. Any of that stuff. It's just like there's so many things that we're ready and willing to learn. And I think that's like the homestead theme, right? Like you said, have the courage, but then stay open to actually learning and not get so much in your hole. I find River and I both find that when we leave and come back, like when we left for the Self-Reliance Festival, we went up to the farm, do a speaking for the weekend. It's really beneficial to just kind of get out and then come back and have like a fresh perspective, or like just some time away to like reconfigure things. So I think for us, setting it up where we don't have to be here all the time is definitely what we wanted to do, and it's worked for us to come back. And we're gonna head out to the river for a little bit and feed the animals before we leave, and then go jump in the river.
That sounds really fun. You have a river I can swim in while I'm there?
We'll take you to the river. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
We've got.
I love swimming.
Waterfalls. Yeah.
Oh man.
About this new spot, so we can make that a little part of the time here. Is definitely getting in a river for sure. But I appreciate you taking the time.
Well,
sure.
I wanted to add something as well, and I don't know if you had anything more to add. Really, I feel like it's an important time for people to get good input, on kind of making some steps, because it is a process. But I think like what I've come to understand is like actually, and it's like what you said early on, is like everything you'd done up until that point led you to that point. And it's kind of like there was nothing that we've learned through life that is not applicable. And it's really, I think, I know when I went and did a natural building workshop in Africa, I'd been working as an architect for a long time. And then when the project management, I was working on my season project management. And I wanted to get into natural building. And so I went to a hands-on building workshop for 2 weeks in Johannesburg. And I was like shitting myself before because here I had my little skinny architect arms, and hadn't really did a lot of like construction or anything. And I was going, oh no. And I got there and this whole group of people, and it was actually Alosha Linoff, his little workshop by it, and we ended up doing work together after that. But it was like so empowering, and all of my knowledge and skill came to bear. Like I basically co-hosted the workshop with him, and I think we don't realize actually how much we have maybe to offer until we do it. Um, and it's like Cengiz, who's out in Turkey, who I worked with him on the Ritz-Carlton in Kazakhstan, the hotel project, and he was doing the automation for the hotels and stuff, and he did all that as a profession. And he bought some land out in the middle of nowhere in Turkey, and I just ended up designing this whole earth bag dome house
Have you
thing
seen
for
it
him.
on Instagram? But
Lucky,
it's
Lucky Spring Farm.
It's
Yeah.
amazing.
And he didn't know, honestly, like that, which end of the hammer to hold, you know. Such a techie, kind of nerdy type of guy. And now he's
now
like
he's
automating his homestead, it's upgrade, he's running
He's
workshops.
teaching people how
He's
to
like a
do
huge following in
permaculture
Turkey.
and build
And
earth bags.
everything he learned before, like his little dome houses are like all smart home systems, like automated, programmable. He can go away and he can check his fridges, and you know, he can run his homestead automated, and when he has to go do projects and stuff like that. But I think you do it really well in general, the way you communicate. I think when I've been to the Self-Reliant Festival and things, is like you've got this. It's kind of thing, you know. It's like you've got it. It's like, yeah, there's stuff to learn and there's advice. You know, get advice, get some solid advice from people who are doing it, and like take it serious. But there's something just banged.
No, the wind. The wind.
Like it is accessible, I think. And you know, just the educational part and getting your feet wet as much as possible before you deep dive into something like that is
Totally.
really important.
And that's really was the idea behind the Homestead Bootcamp, is like 101 basics. Like, what are the things that you need to know? And like sometimes, like you said, people haven't even been around chicken. Once your chickens, you're all, but like, you know, just people have come and work with the animals, just doing that and seeing some of the things and getting your hands in the dirt a little bit. It really impacts people. And we just want people to, if you do one thing after coming to this weekend, then that's an accomplishment. If it inspires people to just start doing one thing. And there's a lot of one things that you could pick to do. You know, it doesn't have to be chickens. It could be, there's so many things, you know, that people can be doing. So bees are a little more complicated.
Yeah.
They're expensive. They're just expensive.
Mine were free, but I'm allergic to them now, so they moved out.
Oh, well, I'm getting bees tomorrow.
I'll be okay around your bees. It's fine. I just won't walk up to the hive and do this right in front of the hive. I know better. Yeah, I think a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, some people see a stream like this and they're like, I could never go out there and be out on the land because I don't have the stamina and I don't like to get hot and I don't like to be outside, but I kind of am interested, or maybe I don't feel like I'm physically capable of a homestead boot camp. The deal is this. Nobody's expecting you to go out there and work a 14-hour day in the sun. Like that's not the purpose of something like this. And you can start getting a real view of how it is and how you can scale. Because, you know, I look at it this way here. Sometimes we have a pile of 2x4s that has to move because there is a project going on. And I move them 1 2x4 at a time. And Tactical moves them 3 2x4s at a time. And it takes me longer and more trips. And if I have to rest or cool down because it's hot, I rest and I cool down because it's hot. It's totally scalable. I know people who can't see who are raising livestock. I know people who have one arm who are raising livestock. And it just has to do with deciding you're going to do it and then do it at your pace. And whatever your pace is fine. And over time, if you go in there not as fit as you wish you were, you'll eventually get more fit along the way. It's just part of a natural progression.
Yeah, we're working on the sauna this summer. I'm just imagining I'm in a sauna all the time, but no, it's true. And but you learn to work with it. Like you get up earlier and work in the morning. Like you got to be smart about it also, right? As far as that, because it's a little tricky here in Tennessee. People don't think it's as hot as it is, so then you can get really dehydrated. So we make sure people stay super hydrated and just don't go out in the middle of the day when it's the hottest point and start gardening. You know, it's like those kinds of things. You definitely get more intelligent as you go along versus like pushing and having to do it. I think just working with where you are and working with what makes sense and the seasons and all of that. but yeah, we're not going to put people to work necessarily for this boot camp, but we could probably come up with some things. But it
You
will.
can do projects. She's not saying you can't do projects.
But there's a lot to see, and there's just, I think just being here in it is good, and being immersed in nature. You know, we just, even the people that came for the hemp builder workshop, the one couple, you know, they've done natural building, but they're in New York, and they're like, just being in nature for these 2 weeks that they were here was like a big deal for them. You know, it was like, wow, hearing the frogs and the cicadas, the symphony, you know. So yeah, and when you're here, you kind of take that for granted, but that is so healing for people just to be in nature and reset their whole nervous system. So super excited to see you here soon.
I can't wait to get, I wanted to come down like once ahead of time to see what I was getting into, but some things have happened in my personal life. So I'm going to be seeing your place for the first time at the boot camp.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be awesome to have you here. And thanks everybody for tuning in. If you are interested to join us at the boot camp, like we said, it's havenearthtradeschool.net. And we look forward to seeing some of you here. Have a great rest of the weekend, Nicole.
Thanks, Nicole.
You too.
Take
care.
Bye.